It's exactly that, and it probably is a warning to all of us not to judge too early. So we'll do it 5 games in.
I was always going to judge. And what I can tell you, they're both 2 average sides.
Yeah.
You know, 2 average sides who, at best, this season, what they can achieve is Europa League football. Hopefully, they'll be fighting for that along with Leicester, West Ham, Everton, Aston Villa, possibly. So there's a mini league below the top 4 we already spoke about. So I agree with Darren. I think it's a 50-50 game, but the momentum has to be with the team who's on the back of 2 wins rather than the team who's on the back of 2 losses, and that, unfortunately, is Arsenal.
Yeah, and the atmosphere is going to play into all of that as well, because this could have been absolutely toxic if Arsenal hadn't got those results against Norwich and Burnley. And yet now it feels like it may turn toxic depending on what happens, but it might well be a kind of more supportive, usual North London derby crowd.
Yeah, I mean, there is a feeling within the Arsenal fan base that the stadium-going fans are more committed than the social media fans. And certainly away to Norwich, for example, was that away? There was an away game where the fans were very. Forgive me if it was it Burnley?
Burnley.
Yeah, the fans were very, very supportive of Arteta, and I think in this game, what could be key is if Spurs score first, then we might see a return to that toxicity that you're talking about. But I certainly think going into this match now, the tables have turned and there's more of a momentum behind Arsenal and what Arteta's trying to do rather than Spurs, where there is a big sense of foreboding around Harry Kane and Nuno's ability. Remember, they didn't want Nuno. Wherever they say it at the start, when we first started writing about Nuno and Spurs after he left Wolves, Spurs, the noises come out of Spurs were, no, he is not for us. And then, of course, all the other managers they wanted indicated they were not interested, and he ends up back there. And a great start to the season. You start to think, well, maybe. And then suddenly you look at Spurs now and they're a mess.
Do you know what, you say it was a great start, and it was for Spurs, but I don't think they played particularly well in them first 3 games that they won.
The City game,
that was one, yeah. But the Wolves game, for me, that weren't good enough at all. Wolves should have, if it weren't for poor finishing, they would have won that game. So even though they'd won 1-0, and other than the City game, as you said there, I think he got his tactics spot on in terms of Lucas Moura, Stephen Bergwijn's son, going forward, pragmatic, counter-attacking. Other than that, I think that the Crystal Palace result was coming.
And the Watford result, if you're newly promoted side, not a very good one either, and you get 52% possession at home to Watford and have very few shots at goal. Tottenham fans will not suffer that. You're absolutely right. He got his tactics spot on against Man City. You're allowed to, because it's at home, it's Man City. No one's expecting them, so they can sit back. But it's not his tactics which change. That's the tactics what he's always done. He's done that when he was a Wolves manager and done very, very well. It's not about changing the manager. They brought him in to do a job. Now, Daniel Levy is suggesting we play on the front foot. Now we want a manager to open up the game and play on the front foot and play exciting football. That is not Nuno. It's not right or wrong. It's not his style. It's not what he's delivered in the Premier League for Wolves.
On top of that, I probably get in trouble for saying this, but I think Spurs managers have to have a bit of charisma about them, a bit of personality. I remember when you managed, we come to your press conferences, you were very open with us, very honest, and you had your own style you brought to it. Nino's very... he's a nice guy. He's a wonderful guy. He does the stuff he's done at Wolves, where donated to local community and all that sort of thing. He has a real connection with fan bases and whatnot. But does he have the charisma to manage a Tottenham? And I know that sounds like quite a banal thing to say, but I just think sometimes a team can reflect their manager. And some of the most thrilling Tottenham sides we saw, they were a reflection of their manager. Under Pochettino, they expressed themselves, but they had that steely back line, which was very Pochettino. He was very charismatic, but he had that edge. If you crossed him, you were out. I look at this Spurs side now, and they're very stodgy. They're very, sometimes quite dull to watch. I just don't see a Spurs side that excites me. And I wonder if that could be part of the reason why Harry Kane is just feeling so undermotivated and looks around and thinks to himself, what have I got behind me?
There's not too many more charismatic managers than Jose Mourinho, though, is there? And
did we get the Jose Mourinho that had the twinkle in his eye, or did we get the Jose Mourinho?
I think we did when they were top of the league. They were top of the league going to Anfield in mid-December, and I think he was strutting about a little bit, and then it went sour very quickly, and then he's out the door. I agree. That was not a Tottenham appointment. I don't think Nuno's a Tottenham Hotspur appointment. The only way he can be a success is to win games. It doesn't matter how you play if you continue to win. Have they got the players to continue to win, to take them to the top 4? No. Can they win a domestic cup competition? Of course they can. They're capable of doing that. You know, they played a very strong side last night against Wolves. They can do that. Their biggest chance of silverware is the Europa Conference League. Their best chance of getting into Europa League next season is to win that competition. There's only them and with respect to the other teams, them and Roma in that competition. They should, with the squads they have, beat the rest of the teams. So they should really, in my opinion, rest players to play in that competition and the Carabao Cup, FA Cup when it comes around.
On the managerial appointment, what Daniel Levy was saying when he was looking for a new manager, when he made the statement, suggested that he did know and he did recognise that point that you were making, Darren, about that charisma and about the connection with the fans, because he said we need to select someone whose values reflect those of our club and return to playing football with the style for which we're known. He wanted free-flowing, attacking, entertaining football. He wanted young players flourishing from the academy, experienced talent. So having said that, it shows that Daniel Levy knows what was needed. And the fact is they did go after managers like that, but people turned the club down.
But that statement was already out.
Yeah, but he made himself, the point is, he made himself a hostage to fortune with that statement.
Exactly.
Because if you're going out and saying, that's what we want, that's what we see in a manager, and then you bring somebody with Nuno in who doesn't have a reputation for those things. Yes, OK, they've got good, talented players. Skip looks like he's going to be a fine player for the club. Tanganga as well is doing particularly well as well. But essentially, when you look at Spurs, they're not playing attacking, free-flowing football. They're not particularly easy on the eye. And I think in Nuno, you don't have somebody who, in press conferences, listen, I don't think Arteta's that charismatic as well, but he's an excellent communicator. You know, he tells you what he's trying to do and what he's trying to build, and he's not giving you one-word answers or very, you know, sometimes in press conferences, I can tell you, I've been in them this season, they're painful. And I think as far as Nuno is concerned, if you're a Spurs fan, you want to be energised ahead of a match like this.
Do you know what, though? The only thing about Nuno, I feel a bit sorry, not feel sorry for him, but I can understand in terms of why they went for a manager like Nuno, is that I think if this Spurs team tries to play open in this free-flowing football, they'll get opened up every single time. I don't think the players there are good enough. So with someone like a Nuno, I think he's probably the perfect appointment in terms of where they are right now, in terms of defensively not great, but hitting teams on the counter-attack, sitting a little bit. I mean, the midfield against Crystal Palace, I think it was, where it was Højbjerg, Skip, and there was Winks in there. I mean, there's not really a lot of creativity there. What he's trying to do is kind of shut up shop. Now, I think if the Spurs fans want to see, and I get it, they want that Pochettino football where you've got the likes of Harry Kane and Son and Dele Alli's flying. I understand that. But when you look at where Spurs are right now, they can't do that, because if they try and go toe-to-toe with some of these teams, they'll get absolutely opened up. And then the fans are going to be saying, what's going on here? Why are we so easy to play against? So
I think that I only agree to a point. I think under the old Spurs, again, they were unlucky because the South American players wanted to go. But I think if you suddenly, by then I would imagine Romero would have built up to speed enough to be able to play in, you know, to start that match. Dyer, they lost very early in that match as well, and he's been playing particularly well this season. And I think they're a better side than they were when Alderweireld was at centre half. And they had a number of other players that just weren't quite up to it. I was surprised they sold Sissoko because he was a presence in midfield without necessarily being influential on games. But I think this is a different Tottenham at the moment. I just think that the tactics just don't, to me, get the best out of the players at the moment. And I think that's a big part of why Kane is disillusioned.
There's zero playing identity. Well, there is a playing identity, but it doesn't marry up with what they how they recruit. So we talked about Chelsea's identity and Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool. Easy to scout them, very easy to scout for them managers, because you know exactly how they want to play. With Nuno, yes, contrast to what the fans want, and he got caught in between. You're playing against Chelsea, he got caught in the emotion. It's Chelsea, it's a London derby, we have to go on the front foot, we have to play high tempo, we have to get at them. Did that very well first half, brought Lo Celso back into the team. Brings in Ndombele back in. I was encouraged when I saw the lineup, thinking, you know what, perhaps they've got a chance now. Then I saw Harry Kane on the left-hand side and Son down the middle. Couldn't understand that decision. And then Tuchel changed mid-game. Mason Mount comes off, Kante goes on, looks like a defensive move. No, increase the tempo. They could not handle it. Now, if you're going to play that way on the front foot, and a large portion of them Tottenham players are capable of doing it, because we saw them play under a number of years with Pochettino, from minute 1 to the last minute, they're on the front foot. They're trying to win the ball back high, and they play with intensity, and they play direct football, getting the ball forward. They could not handle that. You cannot just turn it on and off. You have to train that way. Now, Nuno does not train that way. It's very much get back into a solid base and we counter-attack. Worked against Man City, you've got Lucas Moura, you've got Bergwijn, you've got Son. Ball carriers can take you forward. Now you've got Harry Kane there. Don't play him on the left wing. He might as well be sitting next to you. Play him in the penalty area. He needs to be scoring goals, but you need to get the support act around him.
Well, this was the criticism of Harry Kane in the last game, which was he might as well be sitting on the bench because he's not doing what Tottenham want from Harry Kane. He scored last night in the Carabao Cup, but that's another story in itself because Tottenham were 2-0 up, 2-2. Wolves came back to draw with them and ended up Spurs went through on penalties. But we're not seeing the best of Harry Kane, it's fair to say. Why not?
I think it's a hangover from him not wanting to be at the club, and I think he's had lack of training. I think he's getting up to speed, but he's not going to be helped by playing on the left wing. You've got to play him in his position, whereas get some players around him, like Son, like Lucas Moura, who can run beyond. Get Dele Alli in his correct position, which is a number 10. How we saw him play with Pochettino, where he bursts into the box and he anticipates where the ball's going to go. Goal threat. That is Tottenham at their best, and then put a solid base in around it. We know you've got Højbjerg there. I think it's a decent signing for a Nuno or a Jose Mourinho. I'm not sure he would have played in a Pochettino side because when you have to chase the game, he's okay in possession, but he's not really a creator. He's not a Christian Eriksen, who can find a pass. They lack that passer in the midfield area, that creativity. Lo Celso can do it. He can sit, but he's playing higher up. I would play him.
Ndombele can do it.
Ndombele can do it because he drops the shoulder and drives past. His passing's okay, but then he'll let you down and give the ball away in the wrong area, and then so Nuno will not trust him to do it. I like Ndombele, but the boy has to look himself in the mirror and say, "Am I doing enough?" And I would say, "No, you're not doing enough because you're not fit enough. You're not fit enough to play Premier League football for 90 minutes every single week, and that is wrong."
Can I just go back to Harry Kane? And you talked about the game against Chelsea, where it looked like they were doing all right for the first half, and then the switch was made by Tuchel. In that game, given how well they did against Manchester City, would there be an argument in that game, the Chelsea game, for not playing Harry Kane, for going with the same team that started against? I know, but then you were talking about emotion and the factors that come into play. I wonder if that's something because it feels intuitively right that if you've got Harry Kane on your side, you are going to be much better and you're going to be much more likely to win the game. But tactically, would it be better? I don't know.
I agree with you.
I don't know. I was very prepared to be shot down in flames.
No. Listen, I remember after when it was clear he wasn't going to be going, and I remember asking people I knew, would you start Harry Kane in this subsequent match, or would you go with the players who won the match beforehand? And that's not a slight on Harry Kane, but we do have an obsession in English football, or just in general in the sport of football. If you've got elite players, you have to play them. You have to find a way to play them. But really, the playing field should be level, and if the side wins without you, surely they continue, and then you find your way back into the team. And so, it's unthinkable to many people that you could have a Spurs side if Harry Kane is fit without Harry Kane in it. But I think the side against City were fast, they were compact, they broke quickly, they were disciplined. And it was almost incumbent on Nuno to say, look, you guys pulled off a fantastic win. I'm going to stick with you guys.
No Lucas Moura, though. He wasn't fit, so they wouldn't have been able to do that anyway. He's never leaving out Harry Kane if he's fit. I mean, Ruud Gullit tried that, didn't he, at Newcastle with Alan Shearer, and he lasted about a game after that.
But that's my point, though. I mean, you look at I know we're going off the topic of England's golden generation, right? And everyone's like, you've got to have Lampard and Gerrard, and if one of them was dropped, it was big hoo-ha and whatever else. But the top teams find a way to balance their midfield. And you do look at the top teams and their benches, and there are stellar players on those benches. And I don't think the sky falls in if you say, you know, I'm going to make a call here and I'm going to stick with the players that have won this football match. Yes, we have a triple Golden Boot winner, but, you know, we've had all of this hoo-ha around him. Let's stick with the players we got and let him find his way back into that side instead of dismantling a winning team so that we can accommodate him, because the form since then has been poor.
It's difficult to leave someone of that stature, as you said. When you look at
the this is kind of what I'm asking about. Is you can't leave Harry Kane out, and I think we all kind of. But emotionally, I think we all kind of understand that, especially for a manager like Nuno, who's come in, knows he wasn't first choice, knows that maybe the fans aren't completely sold on the way that he plays football. He's got a club hero, an all-time club hero. Yeah. To leave him out is huge. It's hard to take emotion out of that, but if you do, then tactically, would it be potentially a better decision?
Not for me.
No.
Not for me. He will be top scorer at Tottenham this season.
No, I don't mean every game.
Just in certain don't leave him out, because what you could end up doing, at the moment, he will give 100% for that football club. And he's upset enough that he never got his move away from the club. But he will still give 100%. And I think you've got a better chance in the long term of winning something if you keep him happy.
Yeah.
If for one game you decide to leave him out, difficult when you've had that slap in the face to then, oh, OK, Gaffer, I'll be playing next week. No, it doesn't work.
The summer, he's talking about walking away from Tottenham.
Yeah.
So does it only work one way?
Can you imagine Daniel Levy looking at the back of Nuno's head when he sees no Harry Kane? He's sitting next to him. It will not happen. He'd be saying to him, what are you doing? And the next thing that will happen, Nuno will be out the door. You cannot leave a player. The only way he can get away with that is to win. It's a rod for his own back. Why would you do that? Why would you make that decision? Not only because he's a big character, because he's the best player they got. He's their only world-class player.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think Son is world-class.
But I also like that longer term view
I agree
as well.
with Son. Name another one.
No, but I'm saying... I think... No, hold on a minute. The point you're making is valid, but I think the problem with the point that you're making is that you're saying dropping Kane is a it's a commentary on his abilities, and it's not. It's saying we have just beaten the defending champions in a football match with Son leading the line with a disciplined, dynamic performance. There is nothing to say I can't... And while that was happening... The backdrop to all that was that the guy that everyone is saying I'm wrong to leave out has been saying, I'm too big for this team. I need to make it step up to another level to play for a bigger team. So let's stick with the players who've done it without him.
I hear you.
In the subsequent game. That's not saying he's a bad... There's not been defending Harry Kane all summer, so I don't see him to be a bad player. I'm just saying, for that one match, would it have been so bad for Nuno to say, you know what, I'm going to stick with the players that have got me this 6 months. You've been a manager of Spurs. You know how difficult it is in those first 2 games of a summer to win the matches. Historically, Tottenham don't win their first 2 matches because they're rifling around the bargain basement to find players. But what they did was get themselves off to a great start. Suddenly he's in there, and suddenly the wheels come off.
But he couldn't pick the same team because they wasn't available. That's the whole point. So who else are you going to put? You're going to put Brian Gill out there instead of Harry Kane because he'll play in more of a dynamic. Lucas Moura wasn't available to play in that game.
No, but I'm saying Son. You could have stuck with Son as the point man in that game.
Yeah, but then who else are you going to bring in? I mean, listen, Son would have... If you would have asked Son where you prefer to play, he would tell you off the left. Now, why he made the decision to play him down the middle and Harry Kane on the left is beyond me. I do not understand that decision.
Now, Son has played well for Spurs when Kane has been out for sustained periods of time with his ankle injury. Son has led the line. He's won matches in the Europa League. He's won matches in the Premier League. He's beaten City before when he's led the line as Spurs striker. So it's not necessarily a bad thing if he does play through the middle, even if he prefers to play on the left.
They're good for each other. If you look at Son's goals, who makes him them goals? Harry Kane. If you say to Son, who do you want to play with, he'll say Harry Kane. If you say to Harry Kane, who do you want to play with, he say Son. Now, I think it's a non-argument. If them two are fit, because they've got a lack of quality in their squad, they have to play. 1,000,000%, they have to play because you don't want to... We talked about burning bridges, Tuchel. No one would do that. The only thing I would say about Nuno and why he's come in as a manager, he's never had a player like Harry Kane. Never, ever. played with a style with Harry Kane. He's always played deep. Jimenez will stay up there. He's nothing like that. Jimenez wants to stay as far as he can towards the goal. Harry wants to come deep. Now, Nuno has to find a way of attracting the centre-backs now. He has to play Dele to play and attract so Harry can come off. At the moment, Harry's coming off. People are right up his backside. You know, they're putting pressure on him. Sonny's in behind, but he's the only other threat. They've got problems there at the moment of how to play, a style, an identity, which I don't see. I know I've seen it, Nuno style, more at Wolves than I have at... In the first game, absolutely right. That is his style of how he wants to play. Now, if Moura, Bergwijn and Son are fit this weekend, do you think he leaves him out? Harry Kane?
I don't think it's an issue anymore because he's going to play him regardless. I'm only talking about that initial point at the start of the season where he'd won those 2 games. I don't think it becomes an issue.
But for the manager as well, though,
yeah, well, that's what I thought was really interesting, was this idea about the long-term planning of it, where you've got a player who's already upset about not getting the move that he's pushed for, that he thought was happening, and then having to explain to him that, no, you've not let him go, but at the same time, you're not going to play him in one of the biggest games of the season.
That's the thing.
But in any chance you could turn up for, I don't know, Burnley next week and kind of... And it's no disrespect to Burnley is what I'm supposed to say after that. But look, it's that I can understand that the sort of psychological...
So the repercussions for Nuno.
The psychological repercussions
new job.
for a player who's already in his head struggling with working out what his role is at the club.
Exactly, and for Nuno himself as a manager, he just got to the club. Of course, Harry Kane wasn't their first game of the season, it worked. And the biggest game, as you said, London derby, not playing your absolute star man, the one world-class player you got. In the long run, can he keep doing that? Imagine they get the result against Chelsea and then they've got Liverpool coming up. Does he then go and do it again? Listen, we've got Liverpool coming up.
We're going to keep you, but we're not going to play in any of the big games.
I just don't think Nuno can do that. Not already.
I'm just a bit confused. What game are we talking about dropping him for?
No. We were talking about the fact that he wasn't available, obviously, for the Manchester City game at the start of the season, and Spurs got the result in that one.
And if he was,
then the Chelsea game came along, and it was a different. He played in that one, but as Tim said, not in his favoured position. And my question was whether there was an argument that in that type of game that they would be better served tactically, all other issues aside, but whether they'd be better served tactically to do what they did against Manchester City. And maybe there is a tactical argument for that. The problem is you've then got a player who, and then as Darren said, if that happens, if they get the result against Chelsea, then you say, well, when we play Liverpool, what are we going to do? And so then you keep Harry Kane, but you don't play him for any of the big games. And how do you explain that to him? We didn't let you go to Manchester City. We're going to keep you, but you're not going to play in the most important games of the season.
My point was only about the start of the season, where they'd got that win over City and Wolves. He came on against Wolves, didn't he? But my point was that they'd done so well in those games that maybe it was fairer to the players who had got those wins while all of the dramas were happening to stick with that side. It wasn't that for the subsequent games you drop Harry Kane. It was more about those initial first 2 games. He wanted to leave. He was saying, I want to go. And the players there were basically putting in a shift without him. So maybe at that point, I was saying, I wonder if Nuno's going to stick with the players that have got the points early in the season. And that was it.
See, the conversation should be with Daniel Levy, with the manager, and say, Nuno, you know, you got Bergwijn, ball carrier, Moura, ball carrier, Sonny, loves the personality of being down the middle, as you said, to be the main man. He's done well when Harry's not there. We've got them. Should we not let Harry go? Doesn't really want to be here. Do them 3 suit your style a little bit more? Let the manager answer. I know what I'll be saying. Are you crazy? I want to keep Harry Kane. Because when we're not playing well, and we have to take the game to the opposition, because these fans are going to demand that, he's going to score us goals and take us in a position where we shouldn't be. Because he scores goals for them and wins them 3 points when no one expects him to win. Because he's world class.
I just think, I always remember George Graham used to say, if a player wants to go, let him go. You know, it was very much of that opinion that he only wanted players to play for Arsenal at the time, is when he said it, who were committed to what the club wanted to do. Now, again, we know that Kane is an extremely committed footballer, full stop, but you can't doubt that he gave a number of podcasts and interviews saying, I would like to leave. individual honours are fantastic, but I want to win silverware. You have to recognise that fact. So if it is the case, then maybe if the owner comes and says, look, what do you want to do? You start to do what Villa did, for example, Jack Grealish, and say, what are the numbers around this? Where can we reinvest and see if we can get other players who can do the job that we're asking one man to do? And see if there is a contingency plan that you can start to formulate. I'm sitting here, I would never